This is Radio Islam International, and our very special guest this day is Dr. Azzam Tamimi. He's a British Palestinian, chairperson of the London-based Al Hiwar channel. He writes and lectures on issues related to Islamic political thought and Middle Eastern politics. Dr. Azzam, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome to Radio Islam.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We have 7 questions for you today as we put you on the hot seat. And we obviously run through these to get a window into your world, your ideas, as well as the basic essence of your existence and the Palestinian people with which you commentate on so often. Let's start off with question number 1, and that is a bit of your personal story and your personal story of Nakba.
Well, thank you very much. I was born in 1955, and that's just 7 years after the Nakba. And I sometimes call myself a son of the Nakba, one of the sons of the Nakba, because my mother, her parents, and her siblings were living in a town called Bir Sheba, or Bir Saba in Arabic. And that was one of the towns occupied in 1948 by the Zionists. As a result, my grandparents and their children were forced out, and they went to Hebron, which is our original town, where my father was born and raised. And it was there that my parents got married. At the age of 7 or 8, my parents left for Kuwait, like many Palestinians, looking for jobs. And then a few months later, myself and my siblings, we joined them. So I remained in Kuwait from around 1963 until 1974 when I finished high school. But when we were in Kuwait in 1967, the rest of Palestine was occupied. So this time Al-Khalil, or Hebron, my hometown where I was born, was occupied, and we couldn't return to it. Then I left and studied in the UK, and have been in the UK since then. My story is like a story of every Palestinian. Palestine is on our minds, is in our hearts, and just as our parents raised us to hope and aspire for a free Palestine, this is something we teach to our children and grandchildren.
Thank you for that, Doctor. The next question that we'd have for you is, if you were to be asked to explain Palestine and the contestation over Palestine in a nutshell, how would you do that?
Well, Palestine was part of the Ummah, and the last political order that was Islamic and under which Palestine existed was the Ottoman. Prior to the Ottomans, it was the Mamlukis. Brother to the Mamlukis, probably it was the Seljukis or the Ayyubis and the Abbasis, the Umayyads, and the rightly guided Caliphate, because it was during the time of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anh that Palestine joined the Ummah. And therefore, Palestine was really never a state at any time in its history. It was always a province, part of a much bigger power. The Islamic Caliphate, or the Islamic State. As a result of the defeat of the Ottomans in the First World War, this entire area that was under the Ottomans, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, what became Jordan afterwards, because Jordan didn't exist really before, except as a river, were remodeled to become different entities. This was the creation of the territorial state by both the French and the British, who shared the region between them. Palestine was placed under British mandate, just as Iraq was placed under British mandate, and as Lebanon and France were placed under French mandate. Yet it was the intention of the British and the victors in the First World War to pave the way for delivering Palestine to the Zionist movement that had been growing in Europe and had been seeking to find a plot of land anywhere in the world to create a homeland for the Jews in the hope of resolving the chronic Jewish problem of Europe. And they did try to resolve it at our own expense.
In the past few weeks, you've got a unprecedented outpouring of support for Palestine around the world. You also have people learning through conventional means, going back to books, documentaries, and using modern means such as TikTok to learn about Palestine, and people have been exposed to much, much more than before. So there's an explosion of information. I want to ask you, Dr. Azzam, in all of this, is there still an untold story or some part of the Palestinian experience that sometimes now and then you still feel needs to be told, needs to be emphasized more, some in some way or the other is going hidden?
Well, I think Gaza has opened a window to humanity to see things for what they are in a manner that is really unprecedented since British mandate over Palestine and then the creation of the Zionist entity. Um, Gaza has created an eagerness on the part of so many people around the world to know more about the history of the conflict. And I think people now know a lot more about Zionism and its roots and its nature than they ever did before. And as time goes by, people are more educated. People become more educated, and to the extent that one of the famous slogans that we hear nowadays is that "Thank you, Gaza, for opening our eyes." Yes, Gaza has opened the eyes of the world. There's a lot to really learn, but I am delighted to see that the monopoly over information has been broken. Mainstream media and the official educational systems are no longer monopolizing information about the history of Palestine and the present situation in Palestine, thanks to the social media and thanks to the eagerness of individuals around the world. There is indeed an explosion of information.
Question number 4 to you, Dr. Palestinian history, your own study of Palestinian history and your own heritage of Palestinian history. If there is a figure in the history of Palestine or the history of the Ummah relating to Palestine that really inspires you, really stands out, who would that be?
Palestine by itself inspires. Palestine with its people inspire. Throughout the history of that part of the world, many renowned figures emerged, and people remember them and study their life experiences. Sheikh Al-Azz ibn Abd al-Salam, for instance, during the time of the Mongols and that period of time, and his role in mobilizing the masses to rise against an invading power coming in. In more modern times, Sheikh Azzuddin al-Qassam, who came all the way from Syria to resist British colonialism in Palestine, then eventually was liquidated by the British in 1935. Countless names, actually. Every child in Gaza today is an inspiration. Every woman is an inspiration. So we're not just talking about renowned figures. We're talking about a model of perseverance, of resistance, of determination to continue the struggle until Palestine is free.
Question number 5, a bit personal in that Palestine takes a lot of your time, Doctor, but you are broader than that in terms of your ideas and intellectual, focusing on the affairs of the Ummah, also involved in media through the Al Hiwar channel. What are the ideas that keep you busy and keep your research interest or are key to your research interests?
Well, I am a member of the Muslim Ummah and I care for the Ummah. And it is my duty to rush to the aid of our brothers and sisters whenever that assistance is needed, and whenever it is within my capacity to offer such an assistance. I am particularly interested in the democratization endeavor in the Arab world, and during the Arab Spring, myself as an individual and my TV channel, we supported the Arab revolutions and supported the desire of the Arab masses to be free from the shackles of despotism. At the intellectual and academic level, I did research into Islamic political thought. I taught the history of Islamic political thought and Islamic movements. And I continue to be interested in this regard. And my PhD was on the transitional obstacles to democratization in the Arab world. And I took Rashid Ghannouchi and the Tunisian Nahda movement as an example to study.
Our penultimate question, this is a question that you've posed in a piece written a few years back. Will the liberation, or is the liberation of the Arabs from despotic regimes going to come first, or will the liberation of Palestine come first?
I think the liberation of the Arab masses from despotism goes hand in hand with the effort to liberate Palestine. Now, they may come together. I think it's one project, and that's why the despots who are oppressing the Arab masses are in alliance with the Zionist entity, as we see today. They are the ones who are empowering the Israelis to penalize the Palestinians and to impose siege on them because they feel threatened by any change in the region that could empower the masses. So the struggle for both really go hand in hand.
And lastly, if you were to close your eyes and dream of the day of liberation, how do you envisage it? What's the imagery that comes to mind of the day of liberation of Palestine?
Well, my duty is to join the efforts of those who are struggling for freedom. Whether I see that freedom with my own eyes or not is immaterial, really. It doesn't matter. There are many people in the history of humanity, prophets, philosophers, intellectuals, strugglers, freedom fighters, who gave their lives for the ideas they espoused and for the causes they defended. And I think this is what matters. What matters is to believe in an idea and to serve that idea until it materializes or until you expire.
Indeed, Dr. Azzam Tamimi, British Palestinian activist and academic, I thank you so much for your time and speaking to us here at Radio Islam.